This is Face the Facts with NBC Connecticut.
Welcome back. The way Connecticut's state employee pension fund has been invested for the last 10 years is among the worst of any state in the country. In fact, a study released from Yale University shows the way the funds were invested led Connecticut to miss out on tens of billions of dollars in gains over that time. Now, Republican lawmakers say it's time for some radical changes in the way those funds are managed. Joining me now is Senator Ryan Fazio, Republican from Greenwich. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
You're also on the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee. I was shocked when I saw this study came out. After all, we are home to some of the most amazing hedge funds in the world that are incredibly productive. What's your take on how and why this happened?
Well, Connecticut's basically lighting money on fire every single year with some of the worst investment returns in the entire country. For context, if we had just returned money in our state investments at the level of the average state, we'd have $1 billion more over the last 10 years. If we were a top level returns, we would be $30 billion over the last 10 years. That would be enough to run the state government for free and then some over an entire year. This is hurting taxpayers, this is hurting pensioners and state employees. It's just money on the table, and we need a change.
So what's the fundamental change that needs to happen on Wall Street? Is it the way it was invested? Was it invested a certain way and it needs to be invested a different way?
Well, Sonnenfeld and Tion's report kind of paints the picture of what at its core is wrong. And I'd say at the highest level, it's this. Connecticut is one of the bottom two performing states. The other is North Carolina. The thing that those two states share in common that no other state does with regard to its state investments is that they're operated by a sole fiduciary. All the responsibility is vested in a treasurer. No private or public institution outside of North Carolina or Connecticut would do that with so much money, with $40 billion. Right. We need to broaden responsibility. We need a new board, an investment board, where the responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility is vested. I think that would create the best situation for taxpayers and pensioners forward. We'd be able to return money, lower taxes, and ensure that there's safe retirement funds for our state employees.
So in a perfect world, that board would be how many people, would you think?
Well, the legislation that we've considered would probably be 11. We actually think that the state treasurer could be the chairman of that board, that obviously the state treasurer should remain the CEO or the COO of the state treasury office. This has been the product of mistakes made over decades. Right. The new treasurer is taking this seriously. The governor is taking this seriously, and the Republican legislators are taking it seriously. We want to bring people together, but we need to act as soon as possible. Every single quarter, we're leaving hundreds of millions of dollars on the table for taxpayers that we could be using to fund vital programs and cut people's taxes.
So Representative Candelora said he thought the treasurer should be appointed instead of elected. What's your take on that?
I don't think that's necessary. That would take a constitutional change, and most states actually do have an elected treasurer. What Connecticut and North Carolina, which are the bottom two performing states, do uniquely compared to any other state is that they vest all responsibility, sole fiduciary responsibility, in investing $40 billion in a single person. No public or private institution in its right mind, I think, would do that. We could have shared fiduciary responsibility with a strong treasurer as the CEO and chairman of the board, and that's the best way to protect taxpayers and state employees and pensioners.
So with this proposal of a board, would you have to write legislation to make that board enacted, and are you in the middle of writing that? Is it already written? Where does that stand?
Yes, and we think that the state government should make this a priority and act preferably before the end of session on June 7th. I know it's not much time, but again, we're bleeding probably in excess of $100 million every single quarter. Wow. That we continue to underperform the rest of the country in terms of investment returns. That's real dollars. Just for context, if we performed like the average state over the last 10 years, the average middle-class family would see their taxes about $7,000 each lower over the last 10 years. This is something we need to act on right now. It needs to be a top priority.
So bipartisanship is not out of the question here in Connecticut. The 2017 budget proved that. That's how we have the guardrails. That's how we're on better financial footing. Do you see a bipartisan push to get this happen, the board happening?
Yeah, and listen, when you see the comments from the governor and from the treasurer, these are serious people who are taking this matter seriously, and I think they're earnest about wanting to tackle the problem. So I look forward to working with the new state treasurer, the governor, and our colleagues on the other side of the aisle in the legislature in order to solve this.
So to be clear, when this Yale study came out showing this longitudinal problem, the new state treasurer was not roped into it.
Exactly. He's new on the job. He's taking it seriously, and I want to work with him in order to solve this problem.
Senator Ryan Fazio, we appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on Face the Facts. Coming up.